Welcome back to Top Sports Talk, presented by Top Sports News. I am one of your hosts, Caleb Generette. Next to me is my co-host, Isaac Deer. Isaac, how are you this morning?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. We got NFL all over the place. I got all the games going, and it's been a pretty good week one. But I'm more excited to talk about what kind of happened in the preps world last week. There's a lot to get to, but football's back. Everything's back. I'm in a good place. Sports wise, I'm good to go. You can't get much better.
Yeah, I'm clocked in. I'm a football guy, so all the football happening right now, I'm just so into it. Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night tomorrow. So super excited for it. Yeah, so almost ready to get into it, but before we start, wanted to mention we want to thank our gold sponsors, Invista Credit Union and Family Guidance Center, for continuing to sponsor. And I also wanted to shout out the TSN ticker. We have it on the website, quick and easy. All you got to do is go to the website, go to the ticker tab, put in your info, and you'll be set. You'll get scores from the games, stats from the games. You can put in stats and scores from the games. It's really fun, super helpful on game days. So before we start, Isaac's going to wrap up some other sports besides football. And then we'll get right into football. But Isaac, the floor is yours.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll go ahead and start with volleyball. Some impressive performances this week overall. Washburn Rural, powerhouse, 5-1 on the year, but they're one of the favorites to win it all this year in state. They had a really good stretch. They beat Blue Valley Northwest, which is always a tough task, and they also beat Lawrence Free State. They beat Blue Valley Northwest 25-11, then 25-20. And then Washburn Rural defeated Free State 25-12 and 25-10. So the margin of victory was kind of eye-opening. And, Brooklyn DeLay, Zoe Canfield, Layla Collins, Jade Ingram, Taylor Russell, those names. They've been really impressive so far this year. And they've kind of just been a blast to watch. But then there was some more volleyball action. I'm missing some, but this is as much as I got so far. But the Manhattan Quad, we had three Shawnee County schools kind of partake in that. It was Shawnee Heights, Silver Lake, and Seaman. They played in the Manhattan Quad. Seaman took over the invite with a quad sweep. The Lady Vikes won their contest with Shawnee Heights, Silver Lake, and Manhattan, sweeping those three really good teams. Silver Lake went 1-2 on the night. Little Silver Lake, little 2A Silver Lake beat 6A Manhattan, but they did lose to Shawnee Heights and Seaman. And Shawnee Heights had a pretty impressive day, going 2-1 on the day with their win over Manhattan and Silver Lake, but they lost to Seaman. So just a little volleyball update during the week. Most of the teams are off to a really good start, really impressive start, and volleyball overall has been really good in the city so far. I can't wait to get to much more as the seasons go by, but kind of want to go over to soccer. Washburn, we'll start off with Washburn Rural again. They're undefeated at 4-0. They played one game last week against DeSoto. They won 5-0. Easton Bradstreet, mentioned his name on the last episode. He's continuing his amazing season. He had another 4-goal performance against DeSoto, and that raised his goal total to 11 on the year after that 5-0 win over DeSoto. 11 goals in this point in the season's is
Unreal.
absurd. It's absolutely absolutely insane. Topeka High, they fell to Sumner Academy 1-0, but they followed that up a couple days later on Thursday with a 3-2 overtime win over St. Mary's Academy. They are now 3-2. Highland Park had a pretty good week. They started off the week winning 3-2 over 501 rival Topeka West. Valemi Diaz knocked in 2 goals in that game. I was there for that one. That was a really impressive win by the Scots. It was back and forth. A PK got Topeka West within 1 goal with 14 minutes left. But a couple days later, they fell to Leavenworth 4-2. But on the season, Highland Park's 500 with a 2-2 record. So pretty good start for the Scots. And then Seaman had a much better week this week than they did last week. After losing their first couple of games on the season, they tied one game and then won the next one. They had a draw with 6A Lawrence 1-1, and then they defeated Junction City last Thursday 2-0. And then Shawnee Heights kind of had a forgetful week. They lost one game against Lawrence High, 1-0. And then they, I guess that was it. They had one game against Lawrence Free State and they lost 1-0. Hayden drops to 0-3-1 on the year. So they just one game. Shawnee Heights has had a kind of a brutal schedule to start out the year. So I'm assuming getting all those good teams at once is actually probably a good thing for Shawnee Heights. So I guess we'll see them, I think, climb here in a little bit with all that talent on that roster. I wouldn't be surprised if they made a run here shortly. But last city team in action this week, Hayden. Hayden and Eudora, they couldn't score one goal in 2 overtimes in the first game last Tuesday. That ended in a 0-0 draw. A couple days later, they took a loss to Piper in Kansas City 3-2. They are now 1-3-1, and that's kind of the wrap up for soccer. We'll get to golf and cross country, and then we'll finish off with football. But right now, we'll go to golf real quick. They have the Washburn Rural Invite at the Wamego Country Club. Topeka High's Avery Zimmerman kind of had the city best score. She shot a city low 84 with 16 schools at this invite. It was a pretty brutal invite, but she was an all Shawnee County first team pick last year, and she tied for 12th place out of 80 golfers. So Mallory Nelson from Washburn Rural had an 85. Sophomore from Washburn Rural, Reese Randall, had an 89. Reagan Peterson had a 90. Avery Scott had a 91. And that was kind of the top Washburn Rural golfers on the day. So Washburn Rural showed out pretty well. And then Seaman had a couple of golfers in 98 and 105. Zimmerman and Samuelson. Washburn Rural as a team, out of that 16 team invite, finished 5th, which was a city best. So Washburn Rural had a pretty good day at their own invite. Let's see, we got cross country. We have the Joe Schrag Invitational. This is a sport that gives me nightmares. I don't know how people do it. Cross country. Don't know.
It's exercising for fun.
I feel like, I don't mean this as a slight to cross country runners, but you might be the most psychopathic individuals on earth.
I think they would agree with that statement.
I'm gonna go outside and I'm gonna run 5 kilometers for the fun of it. You'll never hear those words come out of my mouth.
Heck no. Ever. Not a chance for me
Not
either.
Not a chance. But the Joe Schrag Invitational, Shawnee Heights as a team won the Invitational with a score of 50. Seaman placed 4th with a 70 score, and then Topeka High came in 6th with a 162 score. Lenny Nagorgi from Topeka West, 5 kilometers. It took him 15 minutes to run 5 kilometers, which is super impressive. Isaac Rivera from Lincoln Prep finished 15:09, so he wasn't far ahead of Lenny. And Lenny's had a sensational year, 2-sport athlete. He scored a goal in the Topeka West Highland Park game the other day as well. Jackson Esquivel from Shawnee Heights finished 4th. Corey Sutton from Heights finished 5th. Zach Jowers from Seaman had finished in 6th place. And then wrapping out the top 10 of that invitational, Andrew Emerson from Shawnee Heights finished 8th place. So good showing by some Topeka schools in this invitational. But 5 kilometer. I don't know which. I feel like golf would be the one I could do out of all of these. Maybe. I'm not good at golf, but
right.
You know, it's fine. It's so hard. Golf is so hard. It's so hard. People say, "Oh, it's an old man sport," or "Oh, it's too easy." No. It's complicated. I feel like it's more mentally taxing than anything.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's the wrap up from some of the events that happened this week, from some of our other sports going on throughout the city and the county. But pretty good week in sports here in Topeka and in Shawnee County. So kind of looking forward to next week. I feel like next week is going to be stellar again. I see there's some winnable games on the soccer schedule and the volleyball schedule. So I feel like there's going to be some good wins next week. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, moving on to football, a lot of big games this week. Surprisingly, not a lot of close scores though. there was some teams that were just outmatched, and then some other teams that just maybe not outmatched, but just ran away with it. Just got momentum and just kept going. So I apologize for the order here. There's really no specific order. I just put scores on here as I went. Starting with Hayden versus Silver Lake. This one it was a close game for a little bit, and then Hayden really started to get that momentum, like I mentioned. I think Finn, one of their players, number 33, scored on offense and defense, and then they returned a punt for a touchdown as well. Hayden did. So Hayden ended up winning that one 43-10. Hayden's looking pretty good to start the year. Had a tough game against Olpe, but ended up winning 21-7, and then now beating powerhouse Silver Lake, albeit a smaller division, but still Silver Lake's always a tough team. So Hayden comes out and really shows that they can compete in that 3A rank as well. So what do you think about Hayden versus Silver Lake?
Well, 78 years in the making. That's the last time they played. And I mentioned in our preview before the football season kind of took off that Hayden's rushing offense is legit, man. That offensive line is stout. You got a great couple of backs with Finn Dunchie and JC Cummings. And then last Friday, they really took over in the trenches and in the ground game. Dunchie, as you mentioned, Finn Dunchie, 14 carries for 151 yards and a touchdown. Then he had his pick six on defense, and JC Cummings had 13 carries for 104 yards and a touchdown. So almost identical stats. But that's a pretty good 1-2 punch in the backfield. And then, 21-3 lead at the half. Probably was pretty nice for Hayden to have against a tough Silver Lake team in their house. So for them to kind of just come out of the halftime break and put up 3 more touchdowns, I think for Hayden, you couldn't ask for anything better against a really tough Silver Lake team with, as we all know, some insanely good football traditions, and they just like to win. So that was a great win by Hayden. Tough loss for Silver Lake, but I think Silver Lake got the look that they needed to kind of keep thriving and keep building on this year. But so Silver Lake's 1-1, Hayden's 2-0, and Hayden had 2 tough games in a row with Olpe and Silver Lake. So I'm really impressed with what Hayden's doing so far this year, and I think that the sky's the limit for them so far.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention it's a tough home opener for brand new coach Luke Pegram over at Silver Lake. So can't judge him too much on that. Hayden's pretty good. Silver Lake's pretty good. So overall, just two good football games, or 2 good football teams, and Hayden just had the upper hand. Highland Park versus Schlegel. This was a game. 48-29 final score. Highland Park moves to 2-0, which is crazy to say out loud because recently Highland Park hasn't been 2-0. So congratulations to them. But Trey Richardson, man, he was the story of the night. 8 touchdowns. No, and through the first 2 games has 1,000 all-purpose yards. That's unreal. And just there's nobody faster that I've seen on the football field. You just give him the ball, there's a really good chance he's just going to score on that play. So Trey Richardson tied the all-time Kansas record for 8 touchdowns in a game, and had over 500 all-purpose yards. So I just don't know what else to say. Trey Richardson's just that dude. It's insane.
Yeah, and I know him for a while too. He saw, he sees everything. He sees the 8 touchdown was a tie. He's going to try to go for 9 next week. That's just who he is. He's got that dog in him. That's all he wants to do. He just wants to keep. He's got more yards in these 2 games than some teams will have in the first 4 or 5. It's insane. He's just what impresses me the most is the amount of carries. So what do you have? 11 carries last week for 219 yards.
11 or 12, yeah.
5 receptions for 252 yards and 4 touchdowns. Are you kidding me? Like, that's the insane part of this is a kick return touch. He's had to kick return touchdowns and all this other stuff, but the 40-50 yard gains that look so casual, it's crazy because it's just like, this is unheard of. 11 for 218, and the week before he had like 13 for 223 or something like that. It's
right.
Like, this guy, he is just it's just unnatural how good he is at football. And I think this could be just kind of already so far it's already a groundbreaking year for Highland Park because they haven't had a 2-0 record since '03. So I think this is awesome. This is great for them.
Yeah, then moving on to Rossville versus Riley County. Rossville, big bounce back game after losing last week to St. Mary's. Beats a tough Riley County team pretty handily, 36-15. As far as I know, the running game just was unmatched for Rossville, and they just come out and really show their dominance and really good bounce back game, as I mentioned, after dropping that first one and ending their long win streak. But looks like they're back on track.
Yeah, definitely. After losing their 26 game winning streak, 2 titles in that run, obviously that first loss was a gut punch that you've never felt in your entire life. It was a horrible loss for them, but to come back 36-15 against Riley County, who's historically tough, who kind of like I mentioned with Silver Lake, their tradition is just winning football games. They're pretty simple. They live, breathe, and die by football. That's the way Riley County works. That's also the way the Rossville works. And credit to KP Ryan. I know he had 138 yards with 3 touchdowns, and Seth Catrone, he had his touchdown, and then Braden Hensley had his touchdown, and Catron, sorry, not Catrone. I don't know where that came from. The Rossville has like 8 last names, and I know all of them. I don't know why I said it. Oh, forget it. But Rossville jumped out to that big 29-8 lead at halftime, and then they was just keep Riley County, just hold them, and we should win this game pretty handily. So credit to Rossville. Rossville's back on track, back to their winning ways. So I think they have Hayden next week. I could be wrong on that, but I think they have Hayden next week. So look out for that one. That one will be kind of like the Silver Lake Hayden game. It's like kind of unpredictable. The Hayden Silver Lake game didn't happen in 78 years, so we weren't really knowing what we were going to see. And it's going to be similar with this game. It's like, well, we don't know because they're two just powerhouses, traditional storied programs going at it. So Hayden and Rossville, just these stretch of games is pretty brutal. So seeing them on the gridiron on Friday, that'll be awesome to see. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, and then moving on to a game that I was fortunate enough to watch, at least the first half, Manhattan versus Topeka High. Not much to say here. 59-7 final score. T-High was just unmatched in this game. Manhattan's legit this year, as they just beat Powerhouse Derby last week. T-High made some plays. I know the first play of the game, kickoff, T-High forces a fumble, recovers it, gets the ball. Couldn't do anything with it. Manhattan gets the ball back, scores on the first play. It was just the athletes just weren't there for Topeka High, and it just seemed like Manhattan was the much better football team. So yeah, I just think T-High was just unmatched.
Yeah, and I think the slow starts have really haunted Topeka High so far this year because you think about Mays. Mays put up 4 touchdowns before the first quarter even ended, so the Topeka High didn't even have a chance to blink. Avery Johnson just was, he's just putting up touchdowns left and right, and it was just it's hard to come back from something like that. It's hard to be down 7-0 in football, let alone 28, 35, 42, 49. It's just, I think getting the slow starts. They also had a slow start against Manhattan in a way. At halftime, they were down 42-zip against a team that is riding on the biggest momentum probably that they've seen in a very long time with that win over number 1 Derby. And K-State fans know the drama behind that, but I won't get into that in this episode. But they come out of halftime. They against Mays, they look pretty good. I know out of halftime that Peyton Wheat in this game, this Manhattan Topeka High game, that Peyton Wheat had a touchdown in the third quarter. But the slow starts defensively and offensively have kind of haunted them so far this year. But again, the schedule for Topeka High, Mays and Manhattan, that's a rough go of things to kind of start out. But because Topeka High is a very, very successful program and has a really good history, especially offensively. They've had some really good offensive players come out of that program. So I think having a winnable game here down the road will be vital to Topeka High. But at the same time, the next game, Carlos Kelly is one of my favorite human beings on earth. But I think next game he's probably going to want his team to get off to the fastest start that they've seen all year long. And They struggled last year with their starts. This year, I think now is the time to kind of get the ball rolling again and score fast. Right when kickoff starts, just try to get some points on the board and make some stops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so moving on to Washburn Rural against DeSoto. Once again, Washburn Rural had to come back, and they leaned on their defense pretty heavily as Ty Weber finished with 24 tackles, 13 solo tackles. Great game from him. And Washburn Rural scored on their final 3 possessions to clutch up for the win. So just to comeback kids, Washburn Rural has got the talent. They got a young quarterback in there. So yeah, comeback kids seems like a pretty correct way to refer them to, as they're young and they tend to fall behind early, but still somehow clutch up to win. That defense was legit, man. DeSoto haven't had a good running game going in the first half, and Washburn Rural just came up big, and especially Ty Weber in that second half to slow that down and get their offense going to win the game.
That's what I titled mine. I have little notes on the side, and next to Washburn Rural is comeback kids. That's exactly what I titled mine. So great minds think alike there. But Brayton DeWeese, the quarterback, 214 with 3 touchdowns. Nice. He was 50% completion. And then McKintis Adams, 150 yards on 26 carries. Nice. Titan Osborne, 3 catches, 97 yards. The list goes on. But Ty Weber, man, that's a bad dude. Right? 24 tackles. Holy cow. I got this prop, but here's what I would be if I was a running back. I saw Ty Weber coming down that A gap. This would be me right here. It's a giant chicken. It's a giant chicken scared to death. Oh crap, that's Ty Weber. Yeah, that's why I would be too. But that is a really impressive performance by one of the best linebackers in the state. Great win by Rural 2 weeks in a row against 2 really impressive teams, because DeSoto is a hard place to play. And the fact that they just went in there 2 weeks in a row and got their wins, that was great performance all around by Washburn Rural.
Yeah, so moving on to Shawnee Heights versus Lansing. Shawnee Heights gets their first win of the season, 46-23 against Lansing. So good for them.
Yeah, and then the star of the night was Alan Bauman. 22 carries for, there's a lot of twos here, 22 carries for 222 yards. But he had 5 touchdowns. There's no more twos there, but he had 5 touchdowns. So that, Bauman's performance, not the biggest guy in the world, 5'8", 180 pounds. It's impressive, impressive go for them. But I think the defense to kind of hold Lansing was really, really impressive. Jay Jones, Alex Dittman, both had interceptions. And then it was Jaden Moore. He forced a fumble. So their tackle leader, Sean Wonder, he had 8 tackles. So overall, just an all-around great performance by Shawnee Heights. I know Jason Swift has his guys in the right places at all the right times. And I think last week against Lansing was great for them. It was a great win to get them back at 1-1. And I think this is going to be a big momentum boost for them going forward.
Yeah, so then moving on to TUS versus Leavenworth, a little bit opposite of momentum boost. TUS drops this game, drops to 0-2, 61-14 final score. I didn't have the opportunity to watch this game, so I don't know much about it. Sure, Isaac has some stats that might tell us a little bit more, but yeah, just a tough look for a young TUS team.
Yeah, and I'll probably mention every week we have this pod during football season is that Malachi Berg is one of the most impressive quarterbacks in the city, especially the county and possibly the state. The throws he makes are sensational. He started off the game, back-to-back games with a touchdown, but after their first drive touchdowns, it just kind of falls downhill from there. He had a 60-yard touchdown pass to Cayman Jones. Cayman Jones is a heck of a receiver too. He's really fun to watch, and he's got really good separation. But the Chargers defensively just kind of got outmatched by Leavenworth. Their quarterback, Eddie McLaughlin, he had rushed for 226 yards on the ground, and he scored 5 touchdowns on just 13 carries. As the quarterback just making things uncomfortable for the defense. But Topeka West overall, I think that they have some really good pieces on that team. It's just they just need to put it together. And Leavenworth and Seaman and Leavenworth, those are 2 tough opponents too. So we'll see where Topeka West goes the rest of the way. But yeah, kind of a tough start, tough outing so far for the Chargers.
Yeah, and then as you mentioned, Seaman. Seaman is the next team we're going to go over. Had a huge win over Turner, moves up to 2-0. Seaman wins 70-0. That's 2 70-point games in the past 2 weeks from city teams. So, or I guess not from city teams, but in city team games. So that's pretty crazy. 70 points in a high school football game is pretty impressive, no matter who you're playing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the fact that they got it done, they won that game so quickly, like they did to Topeka West in week one. They won the game so quickly. It was over before the fat lady could possibly even get a note out of her mouth. The Siemens just so good, so good. That rushing attack is so nice. And you know, they didn't have the stats last week. I think Vaughter and Huston and Thomas, who were, you know, well over a combined 200 mark. Uh, they barely had 100 yards because they just got their touchdowns done so early. Two touchdowns from Vaughter on the ground, one from Thomas, two from Tootle. Samson Tootle, by the way, he had 69 yards and a couple of touchdowns. But the rushing attack again was lethal. Um, Hard to stop. Siemens off to a sensational start, and they're just, you know, with the spread offense, you think that they're just going to throw the ball all the time,
Mhm.
because they last year they threw the ball a lot with Callum Barter at quarterback. This year they're just establishing the run game. They have three gigantic human beings running the football, and that's maybe you'll find an identity this year that'll kind of get you past the second round of playoffs. And I think, you know, Siemens off to a sensational start, and even on defensively, they had three interceptions. You know, Callum Barta, who led the team in interceptions last year, had one. Jack Bloom had one, and it was defensively, you know, forced fumbles, sacks, interceptions, deflections, you name it. You hold the team to 0 points for 4 quarters. It was just a perfect night for Seaman. Again,
Mhm.
two perfect weeks in a row. Um, I don't know if the encore is going to be better than their first two performances, but man, they are rolling right now.
Yeah. Shout out to Seaman. They're watch out for Seaman this year. Watch out for Seaman. They got some talented dudes over there. And then Care Paravel comes back with a huge win to wrap up our recap. They beat Donovan West 56-8 to move to a 1-1 on the year. Their first win as a true member of Keisha. So congratulations to them. Everyone knew their offense could be deadly if they just get it going, and it looks like they got it going this week, putting up 56 points. Is pretty impressive.
Yeah, you know, and they had a really tough loss against a probably a state contending Axtell team. Um, they got blown out in the fourth quarter. They kept up with them for 3 quarters, and a lot of people actually took that game positively for Care Paravel. They said, well, if you can hang with that team for 3 quarters in your first game as a part of Keisha, you guys can really make some noise this year. So I think that the 56-8 road win, trying to find your identity on offense without two key stars that you had last year in Carter Bryan and Noah Haster, trying to find that identity again, it's going to take some time, but I think getting a win of this magnitude is gonna do wonders for Care Paravel. So I think this is a great start for them. I know that first loss was brutal and hard for them to take in, but I think they probably turned that loss into something really positive. And it seemed like that week of practice for them, they really dialed in and focused up, and they got a huge, probably momentum boosting win against a Donovan team that's really good.
Yeah, so shout out to them, and then shout out to all the teams that won. But that's all we got for the week. So we're going to be back next week with another episode of Top Sports Talk. Before we go, wanted to mention send us scores, because send us scores, send us stats, send us anything you want us to talk about. Because obviously we're only two people. We can't be at every single game. We're doing our best out here, but yeah. So send us scores, send us stats, send us big plays, anything you want that we can mention. We appreciate it. And then follow all the Top Sports News socials, use the ticker, like and subscribe this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you don't miss next week's. And then, yeah, Isaac, you got anything else?
Go Chiefs. That's all I gotta say, Broncos fan.
Oh, we'll see what
Chiefs,
happens.
let's
We'll see what
ride.
happens on Monday night. But yeah, so we'll see you next week.